We've heard a lot about Javen just coming back and being healthy again just at practice this week, but we've also heard plenty about Jason Lopez throughout, just or fall practices and stuff. Just how have you seen those two guys really pushing each other on the field this week since the two of them have been, fully returned?
Yeah, it's really, getting Javen back has been really good. Just helped our entire receiver room. I know last year he dealt with some injuries, but he did play enough ball to have experience, understand the speed of the game, everything that comes with it, the aggressiveness of DBs. So having, his experience back, definitely helps us for our group as a whole. And then Jason, as a young guy, he's done a really good job of, making plays when he's had the opportunity. And just taking all the coaching, taking coaching every day. He's had his moments of growing pains too, and that's a part of being a young player where he's made a lot of splash plays this camp, but he's still in his growing stages. So we're continuing to watch and continue to push him, and all of our guys are doing that. So it's not a deal where those two guys are competing at the same position or anything like that. Like, I don't want it to be that, but having Javen back makes our receiver room stronger as a whole, and then having Jason as a young player continue to develop does the same.
Ira?
I was just curious about Trey Wisner, if he's been able to kind of get back in the mix at all, and if you've gotten any clarity on that running back situation, the running back rotation. Do you guys have a clear plan of what you want to do in games, or is it still just kind of playing it by how the guys do?
Well, the guys, they've done a really good job over the start of camp. Just Usmani, Sam, and Trey. They got off to a really good start in camp, pushed each other really good. You've seen good things from all of them. Trey, he missed a practice or two in there, but he's working himself back to, getting back in the fold. But overall, the group as a whole, we feel really good about, and those three guys are leading it. So, I think when you have three guys that you feel comfortable playing at any point of a game and in any situation, you're in a pretty good spot, and that's where we are with the running back room.
Bob?
Hey, Coach, where do you see the cohesion of the offensive line now, 2 weeks out? Do you feel like you have the right five, and do you feel like you have eight, meaning a couple guys who are versatile enough to slide in here and there?
Yeah, definitely. We've done a really good job, with our offensive line. Just those guys getting more opportunities to play with each other. It was a lot different than last year at this time. We've had guys that were missing due to injury and all that. These guys have had the entire time since they've been here to continue to work together. So from a communication standpoint, you see the growth in the group. We do have guys that can swing and play different positions, and that's really, leading into these next 2 weeks. The things that, we want to make sure we do as a coaching staff is just, all the things that can show up over the course of a season. Just being able to, swing a guy from guard to tackle if he has the ability to do that. Give our 6th, 7th guy an opportunity to go in there, and they all, and all the guys get to play with each other in some form. So, we got the right guys. We got the right guys in the group. Our leadership in that group has been really good, and I'm excited just about how it's all come together.
Aslan?
Coach, just on Trey Wisner, have you been able to see more from him in practice? Is he closer, and just how important, even though he's played a lot of football, is it important for him to get used to this offensive line at all?
Yeah, no, Trey's done a good job. Like, when the guys have the experience that he has, like, you really don't have a whole lot of, he don't have a whole lot of ground to make up. From an offensive standpoint, he did, what we're asking him to do. He's come from an offense that asked him to do similar things. So, there wasn't it's not a big learning curve for him when it comes to that. I think it's just him being available and, the leadership and the experience that he helps our younger backs with. And then also that he brings us from a pass protection standpoint, different looks that, you're going to see over the course of a season from different defense. Our defense does a lot. So, those guys, him being an older player, having gone through different situations and been in situations our young players haven't, having him there is really, a good security blanket, and then, a really good leader overall for the room.
Ira?
When we were out of practice the other day for a half hour or whatever, we noticed you and maybe a couple other coaches really kind of getting on the guys about pushing through. They've been in camp now for over 2 weeks. Are guys kind of at the point now where it's like the dog days and they really have to fight through things, and how are they doing with that?
Yeah, you're at that point. We've been going at it now for a good while. I think today was day 14, and everybody has, you have in your head those times when it creeps in that you're ready to just take a deep breath. But if you want to be a winning program, you want to win as a team. You got to push through those moments. It's all right. that you have those. You should feel that. But our guys have done a good job of challenging themselves and answering, to what we're asking them to do. And I'm glad, you guys were able to see that the other day at practice. It's because, we feel as a coaching staff, we have to lead that on days, and our guys have done a great job of pushing themselves, but when they feel like, you got a coaching staff that comes with that same energy every single day, it helps them, and we want to make sure that we do everything that we can to continue to push our group. And I just appreciate how they, are open and allow us to lead them every day, and they've responded to it very well.
Matt?
Hey, Coach. Talked a little bit about the offensive line. Norvell has mentioned a lot of young guys recently, like Sandman Thompson and Sean Perret. Was wondering what you've seen from those guys, along with other younger guys like Jonathan Daniels, Paul Bowling, those kinds of guys.
They've continued to grow. The offensive line, that's a position that comes with a lot. And for a guy like Sandman, you playing the center position. You have to do a lot of the communication. You have to make calls. You have to see things the right way. So he's done a really good job as a young player, just continuing to grow every day. He has a veteran player, ahead of him right now that's helped him a lot, in that growth. And, but I'm very pleased with what we've seen from Sean's another kid that with every opportunity that he gets, you just continue to see him get better. And, you want that from your young players at the offensive line position. Those guys to develop, put themselves in position that, they're to be trusted to play. And some of our young guys have done that for themselves. And they're still continuing to grow and learn. And, we're going to continue to put them in tough situations to see how they handle it, because over the course of a season, those guys, they can be leaned on at some point.
Chris?
What has stood out to you about this defense through 14 days?
Oh, man, they play really hard. And, I love to see it every day just from our guys, just the screen that we have to play with on offense to continue to compete at a high level versus them. And I mean this in every level of the defense. Like those defensive linemen, those guys, like they're trying to get after the quarterback every play, the way that they're continuing to chase down the ball, even when plays are downfield, you're watching that show up on tape. And it's something that we make sure from an offensive standpoint, we have to match that energy every day. The pressure of the defensive backs that they're putting on our receivers. We feel that we have really good skill and ability in our receiver room, but they're continuing to get better because of what our defensive backs show them every day. We got guys that they get in our guys' face. They're putting their hands on them. Well, we got to be aggressive with our hands. We got to be really good versus press coverage. And then even in the run game, having the strain to hold on the blocks to create explosive plays. Our defensive backs, they make us feel them every day. And in our linebacker room, it's the same. I know some guys I've seen, some of our linebackers get up here and talk, and our running backs talk about them. Like, they bring it every day. And, and that's what you want, just from a team. You want guys to push each other. We want to be the hardest playing team every Saturday. And, we're getting that push from each other every day. So I appreciate everything that our defense is throwing at us.
Aslan?
Last time we spoke to Ashton, Coach, he kind of graded himself and said that he thinks he's been doing really well. He also talked, though, about blocking outside noise, having to take care of the football. Are you seeing him, take chances in team periods and try to push the ball downfield, or is it just the most important thing right now for him to kind of play within the offense?
Oh, no, man. He's done a really good job of pushing the ball downfield. And that's really come as no surprise because you've seen the consistent growth from the spring and throughout, our summer training, and now it's rolled over into training camp. Us being able to feel confident with pushing the ball downfield, but also, having an understanding as, the defense, they go and they got things covered. We got to make sure that we do the right thing and taking care of the football. He's done that, with good consistency as well. And, not only just getting the check downs, but also showing his ability to pull down the ball and run and create that way as well. So, you're seeing just all of his game to come together, the more that we're continuing to put in as an offense. And he's just done a really good job of just leading the entire group.
Ira?
I think Coach Norvell mentioned the other day that you guys might try to do some scrimmaging and give some younger guys maybe some opportunities. Were you guys able to do that today?
Yeah. That today for our older guys, there was a lot of situational things. We did some 2-minute, some 4-minute situations, which we handled really well offensively. Our defense did a really good job in some of the situations because they were competitive too, where we had to work together. And, and then at the back end of it, it was mostly our younger kids getting an opportunity to, get more reps and try to gain the experience that they need, as we're about to get to the point to start, game planning for, our first game. So it was really good to see those guys get out there today and, get some work. And, it really showed, us as a staff and showed them, as individuals just where they are right now. And then, we can continue to push them and grow from there.
Aslan.
Can't hear you.
Did I mute you?
He muted him. Yeah.
That's my fault. That was my fault. Didn't unmute. Rookie mistake. Sorry, Coach. We've seen Coach Norvell during practice for, 5 out of the last 7 years or so. He's really energetic during practice, but when it comes to like team periods and calling plays, he seems to be a little bit more, I don't want to say relaxed, but just a little bit more subdued. Like operationally, how comfortable do you feel with him now, just knowing the way he wants things relayed to him and just communicating and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we feel really good about it, and our communication's been really good, just dating all the way back to spring ball. Just knowing how we wanted to operate just from a play calling standpoint and how we want to get information to each other in between series and all that. Like we've continually just grown in that area, and our last 3 scrimmages, we've had a drive run of that just with our entire offensive staff. So we feel really good about where we are. We'll have, I think our mock game is next Saturday. We'll have another dry run of just the communication, but it's been really clean, and we all feel really good about where we're at.
John?
Who have you seen pushing Deuce and Mackay to just get those reps on the outside at receiver?
Excuse me. Again, I'm sorry.
Who have you seen pushing Deuce and Mackay in practice to get those reps on the outside at receiver?
All of our guys have done a good job. Tay Gilsey has had an outstanding camp. I brought him up the last time I talked, and it hasn't slowed down since then. Just him continuing to take advantage of every opportunity that he's gotten. And not only in the pass game, some of the things that he's doing, on the perimeter and the blocking game, it's the consistency of how he's playing. It's shown up throughout. So I'm really, really pleased with where he is. Getting Javen back into the fold. He's super excited to be back going. He got fresh legs out of the group compared to some of the other guys who've been going for 14 practices, and that shows. Just he's powerful. He looks fast out there, and our guys are excited to have him back. They know what he can bring to the table for us as an offense. Tariq Mallory, he's had more opportunities too with some of the guys that were out early on, and he's done a good job of putting himself in position, to be a guy that can play for us. But overall, when you talk about on the outside or whatnot, our receiver room, like we recruited these guys to be wide receivers, and this is not a deal where I got this guy's only gonna play in the slot, or this guy, like, man, you're a receiver. You here in our room right now, you're gonna play all over the place, and so all of our guys who you probably heard about throughout camp with Jason and and Devin at times, all those guys are gonna have opportunities to play in different areas of the offense. So we feel comfortable with all of them and how they've grown.
Aslan?
At tight end, H-back for you, Coach, is it by committee or are guys emerging, or do you ultimately like having really specialized, defined roles for each of these guys?
Yeah, you have Landon Thomas, a guy who's going to his 3rd year in the program. So there's the experience, him understanding offense, the things that comes with playing the position. He's obviously put himself in a really good spot to be a leader in that room. And then DeCirio Rouse, he's done a really good job. Getting him here this offseason was big for us, and having to go through spring ball, seeing his skill set and how he fits. He provides an option for us as a guy that can even play in the receiver room. He can do that. Like, he has that kind of skill set. So there'll be some things that we can do with him specifically. Chase Lofton's done a really good job too. When he's gotten his opportunities, he's a guy that can be either or. He can play as an inline guy, he can play off the ball, and he can play split out, which is what he did mostly in high school. So those 3 guys all have the skill and ability to do a lot. And then we got some younger players. Grayson is a veteran player. He's done a good job. That can be an inline tight end guy, point of attack blocker. And and also can catch the football too. So we got guys that can do a lot, but those first 3 or 4 guys that I mentioned, they're the guys that we feel pretty comfortable with right now as we go into the season.
Ira?
Fans and us, we've seen Brock play, we've seen Ashton play for other schools, but most people haven't seen Malachi yet. Like, if people asked you about him, how would you describe him as a quarterback?
Super confident. And just confident in his abilities. He's confident as a leader. He's done a really good job of coming in and learning, taking the coaching, that we get, we're pushing him hard, been demanding on him not being here in the spring, so it's a lot of, catch up for him right now and just understanding all of it that comes with playing that position for us and what we want to do on offense. And he's done a good job of handling that. I think the guys in the room have really helped him too. Ashton, being the leader of the room, has done a really good job. You watch him when he come off the field. Ashton doing a good job of taking him, coaching him on things that he see. And just overall, man, Coach Tuck has done a good job of getting Malachi caught up to speed. But, the one thing that stands out with him is just his overall confidence, his ability to be able to feel like he can put balls in some tight windows. And, he's done a good job of that. But, it also, when you come to the quarterback position and you learn, there's still growth that has to come in there. And, and he's doing that every day. So I'm very happy with Malachi, excited for what his future is going to look like.
Peter?
Hey, Coach. You mentioned about Javen Boggs just coming back. Do you see that Javen is starting to look like his old self, or he still looks like the guy who was just getting his legs under him, knowing that he just came back from his injury?
He looks really good. He spent the last few months, out recovering from an injury. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's as good as he's ever going to be. But when you look at just where he is and how hard he worked in his rehab process of getting back from the injury, like you're seeing a guy that's hungry. And, you feel that with every route that he runs. He's starting to put himself into, all our competitive periods. You're watching him show up. Like, I'll be honest, like right now at this point, when you talk about just our competitive situations, he's won probably every rep where the ball has had to come to him. And that is saying something. So, but I think he's in a good spot. But he's still, we got 2 weeks to get him back to where we know he can be. In spring before he went out right then, that was probably as good as he's looked since he's been here. And, he's on pace right now to get himself back to that before we play.
Any other questions for Tim? Okay, looks like we're good, Coach.
All right, thank y'all.